I think for me the end part is a challenge.
It never ends.
Because life is continuous. I don't know. Maybe we need to find out. I don't know how we define that.
A better sustainable.
Yeah, because it's also those things of you have today is when we know this project you're doing now is
Friday 2nd December 2022.
Yes, we know this project is ending on Friday 2nd December 5 p.m. And at 5 p.m. we close and put shut down. That's it. But that's not life.
Yeah.
Life does.
It has to go.
Yeah. So how do you put in those structures? And I think sometimes the catch is we think about the exit because there's always an exit strategy as well.
Yes,
we probably think about it towards the end, but probably should be having an exit strategy
from the
start.
Yeah,
in such a way that probably you hand over, but the handover maybe doesn't happen very well. Maybe there's no buying from the other end.
Yeah.
Or there is no capacity, but then of course there is also the other part of the in terms of you should, when you're developing your project, I think you should not be you should be conscious enough to also be able to understand the underlying things. There are some things that are untold or unsaid. How do you kind of understand them or understand the culture? Sometimes they even want to say the culture better.
To say,
yeah, because sometimes we design projects very well in a boardroom.
Yeah.
But then we do not factor in a lot of what kwa ground iko different. So I think that also becomes a bit of a problem in terms of so we fail to look at that. And then now vested interest, I think that's also a big issue, because sometimes the biggest challenge, and I think we talked about change process earlier, is it's like when you bring a certain change, you are eating into somebody's
comfort zone.
Yes, and even their gravy or their ugali. So how do you ensure that as there is gains, of course there are certain losses. How do you sort of balance? How do you balance that? Because at the end of the day, we tend to be human, and sometimes our survival instinct checks in.
The fittest survive. It's called Darwin's or
Darwin's theory. So I think it's that. I think and so I'll say the back seats with the ones who are driving the development. To an extent, of course, the ones receiving it as well, and probably also I think we need to change this idea of I don't know, like terminology like donor or how it's perceived. Maybe you need to be partners or something.
I think that has
or investors.
Like
I know, like there's aspects like impact investing. How do it's been changing. You're right. So, or I think part of what also would be helpful is how do we put in place more, almost want to say, private sector models into development.
PPP.
Not really PPP, but private sector led development. Let's think about I'm trying to think of one of the things I'm very conscious of is things like trees and vegetation. Those are things I really like. How do, if it was in Nairobi, how, if you wanted to have, let's say, well manicured sides of the roads, trees planted like what we want to do, is there any way there could be a private sector approach? Like almost thinking like, well, even when I was coming here, there's these guys who sell flowers on the side of the road. Is there any way to have a deal with them? You guys plant flowers, trees, take care of them along here, and then you can use this space. I don't know. Something that is has so it's not an approach whereby like Kanjo now we say this season you're planting trees.
And then they don't water them.
But now, either they don't water them.
Because there's no
or next season,
plan.
maybe there is no budget for it. Or there's no staffing. But how do you look at it in such a way that there are certain people who have interests in maybe either those things surviving in such a way. So I think maybe a little bit of an approach or models that are more private sector led. Because that means the private sector has an interest. That person has an interest towards that thing surviving. So I think that's probably something that would be very helpful for us when you look at the whole idea about development.
I mean, you reminded me of this friend of mine who did urban planning at the University of Nairobi. And he finished this degree, he did, I think, masters or something. And he has finished the studies, he has passed, but there's nothing to do. And that actually shows you how much you don't even plan as. Because government, I think, is the highest resourced organization in any country. And some of those planning, some of those strategies to make sure that you involve people, even when people are going to school, they know, of course, if I take urban planning, I can actually implement some of these. Right now, he's a senior engineer, a software engineer, and he's working for some remote company, which means that if we could combine this technology knowledge with the urban planning, the way you are saying, it could actually achieve more for the county or for even the whole country. But nevertheless, is out there, is doing amazing stuff. And one thing that I have also noticed about even the UN as you speak, all these organizations, you find that there's always been this issue of like, you know what, we are peacekeepers, for instance.
Yeah.
And when you are peacekeeper, that actually becomes vague if there's no peace where you're peacekeeping. So you ask yourself, which peace is this that you're keeping because there's no peace here? Yeah. And you can name a couple of African countries that actually are not stable enough for any peace. But you find maybe these organizations there. Even here in our country, you have found that every year there are people who die of drought. And you ask yourself, is it the rocket science to you even dig some few borehole? And some of these places I hear there was plenty of clean water that was discovered a few years ago. But you hear now the whole government saying, you know what, guys, we need to raise funds for these people.
It needs to be done.
And you ask yourself, yes, it sounds good and noble, and it's okay for those who are raising funds. I have nothing against raising funds. But that's not sustainable, because if you have to raise funds next year and the year after that, what does that tell you? Are we finding permanent solution? Even if it's these funds that we're raising, can we use these funds to find a permanent solution? Or maybe at least a decade or 2 decade solutions that we say we raise funds once, but in the next maybe 20, 30 years, these people are sorted, or these people are stable enough to serve the next generation. So my take here is, and you can give your take, we need to think in the long term.
Yeah.
Not only as a person, but also as organization, as government. Because if we don't do that as Africa, I'm not talking about just Kenya. Kenya actually is way ahead. That's what I figured out after a lot of going in a lot of ways. Yes, it's way ahead. Yeah. But as Africans, as a continent, we need government. I know maybe some of the government people will listen to these presidents and all that. We need to figure a way that we can, and this for all of us. It's not selfish or anything. If we build sustainable solutions that can serve the nation after us, then we give those people a platform to build even better. Because we'll not be here forever.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So that's my take. Before we go to the next thing that I think I have some serious questions for you. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I think it's of course, if any of these issues have multifaceted, but there's a few things that we can do better. And one term I liked that you said before was the whole idea of mindset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's one, even being able to believe we can. And also believing that it doesn't really have to be as it were. Because it's similar cycles. I remember I was young at the time, so probably as far back, I think 1984. Of talking of some drought.
Yeah, when the whole country was dying of.
I remember that's the time of the yellow corn, the yellow maize coming in. And it's almost a cycle. It's like we almost know.
It's almost 40 years.
We almost know every so often this is going to happen. And so it's almost like we've accepted. It will happen. Unfortunately, there'll be tragedies. There'll be this and that. Unfortunate things will happen. But it probably means that we need to look at these problems differently. And they're really, in a way, huge opportunities. And we need to be the ones, let me say the Africans, who feel the pinch, really be more proactive in creating the solutions.
Yes.
And sort of not just look outward. It's always important to look outward, to learn, to
the best practices,
to share. and the likes.
Yeah.
But really, especially when it comes to models that will provide solutions for us, I think that's really our responsibility. It's really us who might have the best lens to provide that. And so I think, yes, we do need to address the whole aspect of the mindset. And yes, even in the long term. And also really look at how do we get away from these knee-jerk reactions. It's almost like it's when it happens that become mestuliwa. Surprise, it didn't rain. Yeah, because I think we're in a time whereby we even have more access to more information, more intelligence.
You can check the weather.
Yeah,
in the next maybe
you can
3-4 years.
You can sort of make a decision how you're going to dress up because of tomorrow, because of the weather forecast, and it's right there for you to access. But how do we now use more deliberately those insights? So it stems a lot to leadership at all levels. All levels, within the leadership that you've been given by the responsibility you hold with what you do, right up to having the goodwill at the very highest of places. And then we'll be able to move somewhere. I think the whole idea is that how do we get to a trajectory whereby, yes, you may not have all the answers or solve all the issues now, but that progression, forward progression in the right direction, in such a way that even if it's going to take 10 years to have people not dying of hunger, but we progressively working towards solving that and solving it for posterity, not maybe just for the next 5 years. But it's an issue of saying that we'll be talking to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and telling them that's like a historical story, not telling them hata sisi wakati wetu tukiwa wadogo hakuwa na chakula. But it's an issue in terms of
it's not a good issue, but you're normalizing it.
It's become inafanyikanga tu ni kawaida. It always happens. So I think those are some of the things in terms of how do we knock ourselves out of some of these things.
Thank you so much for that take. And actually, if someone listens to this, I'm sure it's practical, it's doable, and it doesn't require one person. It's a collective action that is required. Now, Google. Google is here, and I'm excited that Google is here. I'm sure Apple is coming. All these, different companies from all over the world, Huawei, Sony, all these guys. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be next year, but I'm 100% sure the same way I see the sun rise, these guys will be in Africa. And I'm so proud that I started this journey, this personal, 10 years or 12 years ago, knowing that at some point, if this happens, we need to be ready. I still feel we have not scratched the surface. As much as these guys are here, we have not scratched the surface. And what I mean by this is, and you can correct me now, you have traveled. I have not traveled so much in Africa, but I've traveled elsewhere. That Africa, we need to get to a point, and I think even what you have talked about in a few moments, is that in Africa we need to create wealth, so that when all these guys set up camp here, and even they don't have to set up camp. Maybe we might build our own, I don't know, Google, Apple, whatever, and maybe provide solutions or create partnership. So when this happens, we are able even to consume some of these products. That it's self-sustainable. Because what happens is that if we keep consuming, because that's what has gotten us where we are. We keep consuming to an extent that we cannot be able to sustain that consumption, and someone else determines at what cost you consume. So, given that you're public affairs manager, and I can see you deal with legislation, leaders in the market, partnerships, and not only in Africa but across other countries. So that means you have access as much as you've been serving for the last 8 months. You know what works and what doesn't work, because now you're dealing with the middle class kind of economies, or maybe even also advanced economies. What do you think Google has in store for Africa now that they have the camp here?
And that's a very profound question. And the reason I say that is that I look at it in two ways. In terms of what's the opportunity for companies such as Google, and what's the opportunity for us or the continent. Because I think it's really two ways. because companies such as Google, they're not here for charitable purpose.
Of course.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is that, and that's why I lean back talking about business models really being part of the foundation of how we can address our challenges.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that also seeing what's the opportunity Africa brings. And maybe I can mention a bit what I think the opportunity Africa brings to the world, not just to Google, but the world. One of the things that dividends that we have as Africa is that even for population perspective, in another maybe by 2030
human
or so,
capacity,
will be probably be about 2.5 billion or so. In another 50 years, we'll probably be having almost the largest population
in the world,
than anybody else. But the most important thing is that also the age, in terms of age. So we are going towards a point whereby Africa will be providing the workers for the world. And it's more of a question of us as Africans asking ourselves, what's the kind of workers you want to provide?
Absolutely.
The world?
Yes.
At what level do you want these people to be working? What level of skills? Which of course translates down to the kind of income. So if you're talking about to a point whereby, because Africa will have a very young population for a very long time. And so will we be able to provide the high value jobs or high value skills in such a way that Africans will be earning a very good income? Because that's really what we should need to be aspiring for. The second thing as well is in terms of this is partly what also such organizations see, because for example, for Google, whether it's YouTube, search, and any other products that Google provides, the numbers really matter.
Yes.
They add value. They add value, and for Africa, we can actually be able to see that this is going to continue growing and create more opportunities. So I think for me, especially when it comes from a policy perspective, it also boils down to in terms of what's the kind of policies government set in place. Are they policies that foster innovation, or are they policies that curtail the innovation? So if the policies foster more innovation, it means that you'll find a company like Google, the bigger assets there is not so much about the company itself. Because you'll find even the amount of revenue Google makes in such a market, or any company, any other company, global company, there's a lot more the ecosystem gains. You'll find the ecosystem gaining tens or hundreds of times. So you think about it from Google, or how the number of creators who are able to use, let's say, YouTube. People being able to drive businesses. The number of people being able to even build platforms on maybe like maps. We've been able to use that maybe for delivery services. The way we've been able to use maybe search and others to enhance our learning. So you find there's that entire ecosystem that is actually being able to grow out of having a company such as Google for us. And so it's a question of how do we can get that? How do we benefit from that? And how do we businesses that are growing from it and in terms of the ecosystem? So I think that's a huge asset. So I think for me, what I see for Africa is really in terms of us being able to build the right set of skills and the right set of attitudes in such a way that we can be able to we can be able to get better quality jobs, not just from companies such as Google, but also from other startups, these startups that are coming up. How do we provide an environment? Because now, if a startup is set up and it's supporting 5, 10, 15 people, and some of them, support hundreds or even 1,000 people, those are the jobs you're looking for. There is no other, that's where jobs are coming from. And you'll find that these tend to be better paying jobs. Even translates back to government. Those are the formal jobs. So taxes, because those are huge challenges that the government is facing. So I think it really stems from this company seeing an opportunity. And then for us also seeing how do we leverage on it as well in terms of an opportunity.
I mean, that's very interesting from the public affairs, but now from the vitukwa ground or things on the ground, some of the startups feel like, okay, if you want to take like 90% of our engineering, why don't you just acquire us? Because now that means the offer that you are
yeah.
giving our engineering, you can't match, because of course we are resource throttled. There are more priorities, things like acquiring the customer, trying to build models that can scale. There's all these things, and now you find these resources that they have, they cannot afford to match the engineering capacity. The others will feel like, why can't we just partner? Right? Because once you take the engineering, which is the engine, that's why it's called even engineering, then that means that vehicle has stalled, or maybe it has collapsed altogether. So what is Google's plan? And for me, as a person who builds tech ecosystems, and I've been doing this for some time, it's a win-win for everyone. But for startup, it's not the same. Because for me, it's a win-win, number one, and I don't know if there's a strategy. At some point, these people can still piggyback, or maybe to some extent start even startups, or offer the expertise that they learn from Google. But also there is a rumors that maybe these people are not learning so much from the engineering capacity they're doing there. So I don't know if it's a way of disabling the ecosystem that is growing or not. Maybe you can debunk this now that you're an insider. Also from Microsoft, because also Microsoft have been here.
So, okay, I may not be the best person to answer that, but in terms of what I think, what I can say is that, one, you'll find, like, for example, if it's Google or it's Microsoft, how many of these engineers are they going to employ?
Yeah.
Might be 100, 200.
Yeah.
Let's even shoot it up 1,000. But I think that's a fairly small number.
Yeah.
I know, yes, it could have an effect on the ecosystem, but probably what it means is that there's an opportunity in terms of there's an opportunity for us to build even more. I know, yes, there could be some distortion, but I think the beauty about it is that when companies such as Google are investing, let's say, into employing such people with such a high level of skills, then they're seeing an opportunity. And there being an opportunity, it means that even more people should be looking into how do they build these sets of skills. And the other thing as well you find is that a company like Google also invests a lot into building skills, not just for itself, but for the entire ecosystem. So we have programs in Google that have built thousands and thousands of developers and continue to do. And it's something the company will continue doing because they know we are not just building for ourselves, but we want to build for the entire ecosystem. And since the company has the capacity to do that, it's taking that as a responsibility. They should do it for itself, but also for the ecosystem. So I think what I see there, then I see it as a huge opportunity. It means that for persons like yourself who've been developing skills in this environment, it means probably you need to work harder, or you need to work faster, or you need to be able to produce more. If you're doing 5 to 10, because now it's not just now. What you're looking at the numbers now, probably it's a modest number, because now let's say like 3 years, 5 years down the line, the ecosystem will even grow more. It will be those startups you're talking about will be demanding for more numbers. Yes, so I agree. There could be some distortion, and without a doubt there is. But it probably means it's the jolt we needed for the ecosystem to get to the next level.
Yes.
Because also we need to when I was talking about let's say Africa providing the skills for the world, we need to be getting that number of people in such a way that maybe examples you give of India, whereby you call, let's say, for a meeting of, I don't know, people with certain skills, very niche skill, and you get thousands of people, or China. We probably need to get to a point whereby we are talking about those kind of numbers of people. And yes, probably looking at even models such as reference to in terms of partnering with some of these startups. And we already, Google and others are already doing that. So you see they have outsourced a lot of these jobs, or partner with some of these organizations to provide certain skills to them without necessarily taking or having these people working in the organization.
I mean, that sounds so good, and if that is actually practically implemented, that would be great. And I'll tell you from a person who actually has tried to hack the way we should be ready, right? And I would love to build maybe 1,000 every week, or every month, or every 3 months. But there's something I'll let you in on, and I think if Google ever listens to this, from the expansion scale and skill capacity and everything, it's all about consistency. It's all about the resources that are available to you. You not believe this, but the guys who have built this skill have not benefited much, but they understand the impact of what they're doing. But something sad, and I think maybe that might change now, that, I always like to say that if someone is new somewhere, give them a chance. And that's what I'm trying to say here. That they will realize that this over 1,000, whatever they have employed, someone took time.
Yeah,
Someone spent resources. So not only should they invest in getting that talent and getting it from startups, even startups actually use a lot of money, like 2 years of, modeling, taking care, until that skill is something interesting to Google or Microsoft or MasterCard or this. As they do that, also they should have maybe double the resources to build pipelines. What I mean is, and I'll give this for free. So basically what I started doing is reaching people at their second year or even sometimes first year, as long as you're willing, and taking them through the global standards of doing things, matching what they are learning and how they can implement it. And once you create that curiosity, someone finds, maybe I should be learning more about AI. Maybe there are these opportunities, maybe web development, maybe machine learning, maybe things to do with, new languages like Ruby, Rust, C++, C#. Maybe taking the devices there for them to test and see things are running, and all that, and make it exciting. And actually, if you look at it, as long as there's that clear intention, when I started, there were 0 developer communities, or maybe one that started IAB. But right now, there are over 20, 30 communities. GDG themselves, the ones that Google champions, they are across all universities. How are we using that to build proper pipelines such that we'll never lack? We'll be able to grow that, because it's a collective approach for everyone. So I feel like, for whoever will listen to this as a corporate, whatever you're using to employ maybe 4,000 or 400 engineers, double that resources in building a pipeline in the next 2 years to get another maybe 8,000, because you have the capacity. And sometimes so I hear that the people who actually carry out these projects, they don't have the touch with the ground. So for them, it's easier to hire someone and go to Africa Stocking, for instance, and get maybe the 5 good engineers from Africa Stocking to take a KPI. But the next time they ask for another 10, they don't know what to do, because the pipeline has dried out. So what they do, they hope from one job to the other, and then the ones that they got to the other company, they get them to the new company. And you see that it's not sustainable. Maybe
That's true.
to their best of their knowledge, that's the best strategy, and it works for them. And I'm not judging. All I'm saying is that we can do better, all of us. Because at the end of the day, after the noise dies down, we are all Africans. And if this is not sustainable, and you have seen what Twitter has done in, I think, I don't know if it's Ghana or Senegal, one of those places that they said the camp, we still remain here. And we have to deal with what we were dealing with before. But it doesn't have to be like that. So that's my parting shot. And you can contribute into it now that you're in policy making, because at the end of the day, it takes the collective, even the government. Actually, there's a company that has always been looking to set up in Africa, specifically in Kenya. But the rules of engagement, they are not favorable for them. Things like taxes, things like the ownership, things like having local regulations. It's not friendly. Also, as you engage these people, maybe these some of things that you can be able to weigh in, not only for Google, but I think for this ecosystem to grow. Because I feel like people in policy, people in a position of power, our politicians, the leadership, need to understand that it takes all of us at this point. Maybe if you are in US or Russia, maybe it takes the techies. It's as simple as that. But right now we are building this together. It takes everyone to understand that this is the way. And because for me, the reason why I'm passionate about tech is because you need a laptop and internet. It might not sound like a cheap investment, but to me, I feel like the bar has been lowered. Has been lowered. So you can give your parting shot as well as you give your thought around this investment. Yes.
No, and I think I agree with you largely. Because it's sort of like one thing, it does take time to build these skills. It's not, and it's really what you're talking about, the competency. So it's more or less can this person, can this lady
Get things
can
done.
she do it? Yeah, and it's very practical oriented. So it's not so much about you regurgitating what you've been taught. More so in theory, and so it takes time because it's almost like almost want to call it an apprenticeship. Where you're learning on the job. And one thing I think that needed more, which I agree with you, is how do we coordinate and collaborate better? Because at the end of the day, the ecosystems benefits better when there's more of these skills, because you're able to achieve more. And also I liked especially the part that how do you tie the skills to actually addressing real life issues.
Yes.
So it's not so much about you having the technical know-how. And I think for me, one of the areas I really even desire to do more is how do we expose our techies to what's happening?
Real life solutions.
We need, maybe it's something we can even pick up together or figure out somehow if it's not happening enough. How do we expose them? Like now, to the issues we talk about. We have no water. Some of the things
I was almost asking you by this now that you mentioned this, but I felt maybe you might not be the right. But now that you mentioned it, how can we address food security? How can we address things to do with clean energy, pollution, and all these issues that are causing the climate change and all this? Because also I feel like partly we are not involving stakeholders. If you are talking about agriculture, you have to talk to the farmers. If you're talking about the clean energy, you have to talk to the people who own diesel and petrol cars and engage them. I'm not saying this should take like 1 year or 2 years. It can be a long-term process as we build maybe EV software, as we build, proper maps that actually, do this. So I don't know if you are private to like what's the process. Maybe there is internal thing going on for Africa specifically.
Yeah, if you have to talk about, okay, let me call it sustainability. Let me put it that way, just for purpose of putting a word, a terminology. So as to address things like the climate is changing, that's a fact. But how do we leverage more on the insights we actually have? So yes, even for example for Google, like now I'll give you an example. We've recently launched, and it's open source, it's available to anybody. Something around flood alerts, that's exactly what you call it, in such a way that we are able to, with the technologies Google has, let's say like the maps, the satellites, there's certain data we are able to collect that can be able to provide certain insights, and we are able to leverage, for example, Android platform, the Android platform we have on our mobile phones, in such a way that you can be able to provide that kind of insight. So you can actually be able to know it's gonna flood this time, so you get an alert, do something about it, and that's just one level of it. But the thing I wanted to mention is that how Google approaches this is we work with partner organizations. So for example, we are not subject matter experts when it comes to environment, but we do have technology that can actually support in such a way. So we find with such a solution, then we able to have a partner who's able to even build, let's say, technology riding on that as a solution for something. Maybe now you're the one who engages the farmers.
True.
So most of the time for us, we look at how do we act as a, let me even say, it's not the best word to use. How do you act as sort of like, actually, let me use the word aggregator or convener, to actually be able to identify, yes, maybe this person is the expert within, let's say if it's agriculture, this is an expert maybe from a policy perspective, maybe it's government, this is academia, and sort of bringing them together in such a way that they can leverage on it. Because like now for us as Google, maybe we might have the technology, but we probably not go into the ground and actually do the actual
That's not
work.
your core
But it's
business.
also not our core. So we need to sort of have somebody else who either sees it or we see them to do that. So even for me, partly, and I think you ride towards what I felt to be my parting shot. I think for me, one of the responsibility I feel that the opportunity Google gives me is how much of the platform I have can I use to act as that convener? So how do I leverage that particular space to be able to sort of identify this and that should come together to work on issues? So that's part of what I see as being my role and responsibility. Of course, I can't do it all by myself, but the idea is what can I be able to to leverage? What can I be able to influence in such a way that there is more of that? Because now sometimes what I see, and ties also what we said about the people in the tech world, the techies needing to understand the issues, is also for me to look at how do I really act more as an ambassador of the company into the region or the country, so that you can make people understand and appreciate more what can Google possibly do. At the same time, be able to learn and gain insights from our region, parts of the world, to take into the organization in such a way that we're able to be more relevant as a company. It's so much that we're not talking about just the same technology you have elsewhere, as it were, bring it here. Maybe even have technology that is uniquely developed for a region. So I think for me, the key thing is really, how do we get more people working together? How do we get out of our silos? Because all of us do amazing things. But kila mtu tumeji, we are own cocoons in a way. And we happy, we are doing amazing things, but we can actually do a lot more. It's a question of how do we crack out of that cocoon and blossom. So really, for me, that's a question mark. That's what I really ask myself all the time. How do we crack, all of us get out of a thing and be able to flourish?
Are you a broker?
Well, you can put it that way. It could be. But in terms of brokering, but you're actually right. And I did a course. I think maybe I didn't even highlight it in my CV. A course called Partnership Brokering. And partnership brokering is those ones of being able to see maybe this thing needs to be done. I cannot necessarily do it by myself, or even if I do it myself, I can only do 20%, 3%. But I can actually see you can come in and do this part. The other person can do this. The other person can do this. So for me, I think that's really defined a lot of my career as it were. It's something I really enjoy doing. Sort of like trying to identify different people or different organizations. Let's come figure out something. Sometimes even come together around the table. You don't know exactly, but I think there's something we can actually do together. So partnership broker.
The man himself, Alex Nyingi, emerging market public affairs manager at Google. Maybe we should chat maybe a few years from now or a few months, you never know, and try to see how much we can do. But I'm open for partnership, Alex. So I've always been collaboration instead of competition. And any person who is passionate about building tech ecosystem, scaling, and not only in Kenya but across Africa, that's something that I'm so passionate about, because I believe that that's my purpose, to make sure that everyone achieves their maximum potential. This has been Africa's Talking Podcast in collaboration with Impact Masters Media and Podcast, bringing you one of the best, the Impact Masters and Impact Master himself, Alex Nyingi, with over 15 years of experience in tech ecosystem. And that's it. Thank you so much for gracing our show. We will see you next time.
Thank you very much.